I'm gonna show you today how I was able to scale this teddy bear brand to $80,161.98 in revenue in just 30 days alone with Google Ads. Now, pay attention to this video because I'm gonna be breaking down exactly how we changed the entire trajectory of this brand from the foundation all the way up to scaling and found the right ad strategy to turn things around. Because if we take a closer look right here, since October compared to last year, or even compared to the previous time period of July, this brand was pretty much on a very downward spiral. It was barely doing $300 to $400 in sales, but we started work with this brand in the middle of November, and from November 23rd, essentially 24th, we were able to scale this brand up all the way to the peak of $6,000 in revenue. Now, as I already mentioned, this brand is basically telling teddy bears. That's all it does, and as a result, majority of these sales do come during the winter season or do come during the holiday season. But regardless of what season it is, this year was extremely slow for this brand. And if we just go on over to the analytics and just compare the month of November, the first 22 days of November, and compare it to the previous year, we can see just how slow this year had been for this brand. I mean, the sales were down 38%. And if you look at it from September 1st all the way up to November 22nd, we can see that things were just not looking too great for this brand for whatever reason. And that's when we came in. We started a few new strategies, few new approaches, and although things were still down compared to last year, they were much better than what it had been previously. Now, going over some numbers, we can see that the average order value for this brand is roughly $143. These teddy bears are not the small ones, but rather the bigger sized ones. And the average conversion rate as a result is only about 1.25%, not the craziest. If we scroll down just a little bit, we can see majority of the sales do come from United States, with a handful coming from Canada and a few other countries. And Google Shopping, Google Ads in general attributes majority of these sales. Although there is some traffic coming from Facebook, it's a very minimal amount compared to what's coming from Google Ads alone. Now, with all of these numbers in mind, the interesting thing is this brand is able to profit roughly 30% per sale simply because bears are made all within the United States. It's all a local factory, and they're able to really control more parts of the fulfillment, which is why they can get the product for extremely cheap, maybe about 5% to 10% of the total selling price, and then sell it for a very high markup, simply coming down to the quality of the product as well as the branding itself. But with all of these things in mind, when we began work, we started right off the bat understanding what the problems were. And what I understood during this time is a lot of the strategy which had been implemented prior to us entering, it was not really an ideal strategy for this brand because it was just relying on one major standard shopping campaign with one other performance max campaign just sort of running in the background. I mean, I see so many brands, even to this day, rely on standard shopping heavily, and you might be doing this for your own brand. Keep in mind, relying on standard shopping in 2024 and onwards is like fighting an uphill battle. Google Ads is doing a very big push towards algorithm, towards smart bidding, towards automated stuff, and that means it wants you as an e-commerce brand owner to not rely so much on standard shopping. So if your team is doing this, it's a very big red flag right now. You want to transition into more of the automated things, which is what we saw that was getting done here. I mean, they just had one major standard shopping campaign running with all of the products, and it was really not an ideal testing strategy. But to top it off, a lot of their products actually had diagnostic issues when we began. Things such as promotional overlay on images, GTIN issues, which can be fixed for this brand, but other warnings as well. So our first goal here, before even implementing this PMAX approach, was to actually start with the feed and the foundation itself. And what we did is, like always, we focused on the product titles, the product images, and then the Google Merchant Center. Now, for the product title for this brand, we had to choose a very unique strategy and a very unique approach because a lot of these other competitors, they had very similar kind of titles to what this brand was originally doing. And as a result, this brand was not really standing out too much. So what we did is we came in with the product strategy, which included SEO keywords in the beginning, followed by a little dash or a little line, and then made by X. And this was a very unique strategy because normally we just focus on the SEO keywords, we just get them aligned. However, here we wanted to really incorporate that branding, get that extra traffic from those brand keywords as well. And the same thing with the image. Now, for the image, our main goal was to stand out from the competitors. And what we noticed is a lot of these competitors, they had this silverish or grayish background where it was just a teddy bear looking at the camera. That was it. There was no kind of unique factor to it. So what we did is essentially we came in with a product image, which was something very similar to this, where although it had the product itself, the teddy bear looking at the camera, there was some kind of other thing in there. Like for example, there could be a child in there, there could be a little table in there. And the main goal of doing these things was to just get that image to stand out from competitors without investing a ton of money into photography, because it's really not needed. We wanted just a small thing, which was just enough to stop somebody in their tracks and divert their attention from one of the bigger players, like those ranking in the front, to then our ad, which during that time was ranking all the way in the back. But that was pretty much it to get things going. This brand already had product reviews, they already had certain promos going on, but they hadn't really utilized them to the best possible way. And as a result, they were kind of blending in with all of these competitors right here. So we wanted to incorporate more kind of promos, which not only would give them give the users a discount, but also would help the ad stand out by making the price green. Once the product feed strategy was out of the way, once we had all of the foundational work in place, we then moved on to the actual campaign launch strategy. Now, the actual campaign launch strategy during this time was fairly simple. We wanted to just focus more on performance max. So instead of complicating the process, because they didn't have too many products to begin with, we started with the all-in-one approach. This approach, very simple. It just uses one performance max, puts all of the products in there, and with a certain approach for the numbers, which makes sense for this brand, we just launch it to test everything and anything that needs to get tested. The second PMAX campaign we recently launched for just Canada alone, and so far it's not doing the best. So far the US campaign is doing the best, but along with that, we just launched a search campaign, a generic search campaign for cold traffic. We did not want to really go after the brand keywords because our product titles already incorporated that. So it was not surprising that this approach right in the beginning got us to start getting some good, decent traffic and some good, decent sales. As you can see, there were days when we were getting 20 sales, whereas just a few weeks before, there was barely anything happening within the account itself. I mean, if we look back, we can see the sales really started coming in during this time period right here when we launched it. From there, it was all about then kind of transitioning into profitability and scaling, because keep in mind, we did all of these things towards the middle of November, early December, and it was already the peak season. So for scaling, what we did was we also helped them kind of make their landing page better. And although their conversion rate during this time was only 1.25%, because we were reaching a bigger pocket of the audience with the Google Ads scaling, this was still a much better conversion rate than what it would have been if we had not done the changes on the landing page side. Now, to give you an example of what good landing page is, just taking a look at these two brands, the landing page itself needs to be oriented and needs to be designed based on your audience in mind. So just because this teddy bear brand has these kinds of colors, or this brand has this kind of texture and layouts, doesn't mean you should be doing the same for your brand. It's all about what your audience wants. And we kept this in mind by understanding who is the right audience here. Is it a male or is it a female? And what we understood is that although more males were buying this product as a gift for their girlfriends, wives, etc., there were also a handful of females also buying this product for themselves. So have a layout and a landing page which not only catered to both of these audiences, but had more of a relaxed feel to it and more of a loving feel to it, because majority of the sales would come during the gift giving season, including Valentine's Day. So we wanted to incorporate these kind of similar colors, but in addition to that, we wanted to add a little bit of trustworthiness and trust factors to the landing page. So what we did is very similar. We added things such as best-selling badges, or we added Trustpilot reviews and just the Trustpilot badge as a whole. We had a lot of reviews for the bear itself, and just wanted to ensure that the trust factor was there, along with a very good solid description, which not only used different high quality images, but also used a lot of videos showcasing emotion and feeling, like somebody gifting this bear to somebody else, and then the emotion that would come from this gift. These are all psychological factors which ultimately influence your ability to get sales, what your conversion rate is, how we were able to scale, etc. And all these things really worked as a big advantage for us, because this approach, this strategy started working really well. We were able to scale very aggressively. I mean, the budgets, we were almost at $250 a day just for that campaign alone at a very profitable ROAS. But although the sales have dropped during the last portion of December, which is expected because that's when majority of the sales drop, now it's about preserving the profits for the first week of January until things start picking up again, because it's about long term, it's about consistency. Most brands by this point would have already shut off their campaigns because the sales have gone down a little bit. That's the worst thing you can do with Google Ads. If you want more consistency long term, you need to stay consistent. You need to let the ads stay consistent. If your brand does $40,000 or more per month in revenue, you need just a little bit of extra help scaling your brand to the next level. Go onto my website at euromarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see how we can potentially work together and make that happen. But I want you to check out this video right here on my 5 new Performance Max campaign strategies, which still work right now, which you can use to scale your brand aggressively.